Hello there, everybody. Good evening if you're watching this live, or good morning, good afternoon, whenever you're catching up with this broadcast. I'm Martin Cross. This is Cross's Corner, and I have an amazing guest for us today, Niki Van Sprang, Dutch Olympian, former Cal rower, Insta.
I was waiting. I was waiting for that one.
Yeah, it's regular contributor on Instagram. Niki, it's great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
And I noticed the thing about the cap, because one of the most striking things about you visually is you always have the cap and you always wear it backwards. Where did that start from?
It's a good question because back in the day, I actually used to hate caps and I still actually, if I wear them the other way around, it just somehow makes me feel like claustrophobic a bit. Like I have something above me. But then throughout the years, I've been losing a bit of hair. And
Ah,
like if I go day into the office, it's fine. I can comb it all into place, and it will stay while I'm sitting behind the desk. But in a boat, it just won't. And then it starts annoying me, and it's hanging in my face. And then the cap is just a practical solution to keep it all out of my face. And I think my head can handle it as well. So
that's so cool. Now, tell us about your day today, because you're not in the Netherlands, you're in Serbia for the first World Cup in Belgrade.
in Belgrade, yes. Well, I actually got up really early because the Dutch airport has some issues. So they said, "Yeah, you should be at least no later than 6:30 for 9:40 flight." And
Wow.
then in the end, it wasn't that bad. But got over to Belgrade, quick flight, and went out to the course, ate a bit, rigged the boats, and went out for like a 12K paddle, which was nice. And for my teammate, it was the first time, so it was like, "Hey, look here, looking around a bit, getting a feel of the course," and then just had dinner, just the good old travel day.
Wow. So you've got a new teammate, Leonard Van Leroy. So you rode in the pair with Guillaume Krommenhoek. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly.
Guillaume Krommehoek.
Krommenhoek.
It's a one very French name and one very Dutch name.
Yeah. So tell us how this new pair came to be.
Well, it was for us, I would say a bit of a surprise as well. I actually I haven't really been training full time after Olympics till like 5 6 weeks ago. And then the coaches had said they would make some crews for the first World Cup, but just to try things out. And in the end, they said, "Okay, you guys gonna row a pair," and we never rowed a pair together for a single session. And Leonard hadn't raced the pair. I don't know. He's not here right now. I would double
Yeah.
check, but I don't think he ever raced a pair. So we at first we're like, okay, that's going to be an adventure. But we've had 4 weeks now. I think 3 weeks at altitude in Austria, and a week back home, and getting there. I mean, we'll see this weekend was worth it, but so far so good. It's always fun, I think, to get a new. Obviously, like I with Guillaume, it was a very fun pair to race.
Yeah.
To sit behind that power and just keep it straight, just let the big man do the work. And
Because he was a massive guy, wasn't he?
I mean, yeah, it's like I don't know if I can tell any erg scores here, but they're big,
Yeah.
very big, especially for his weight. So, and off the water fun as well. But I mean, the one thing, the pair is a challenging boat to row, but it gives you always honest and instant feedback. So if you just get together for the first time in a boat and the first couple strokes, you think, "Oh hell, what's going on?" And then it's a very rewarding boat to work towards each other. So that's been fun the last couple of weeks.
So there's been a lot of change. You're not the only Dutch pair entered. There's another one with Lippmann and Bazema.
No, yeah, those guys uh, they're actually here on their own. So they're not with the team as well, but they performed really well at the Dutch Championships last year. I think they were last year they might have been Dutch champion in pair. This year they were second in the end, just behind Jacob and Michiel Mantel, who were in the
Yeah.
quad and in the four, because Guillaume and I unfortunately got sick the night before the final day, so didn't race this year. But they were leading that race. They were leading the Dutch Championships till 1800 meters. So all credit to them, and that's why they got to race here and now race the big boys.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I know they raced in Pierre de Luco, didn't they?
Yeah, I think they did, and
Yeah.
in America as well against Washington in the 8th. I think they were there as well. So
So they were in that crew that went over.
yeah,
Peter Weirsom, I think, took them over, and they won that, didn't they?
they won that. Yeah, I mean, I as a Cal Bear, I didn't mind that.
Fantastic. Are there any more from that crew that are racing here at this regatta?
From yes, I think in the straight forward a couple as well.
Because
So
there are so many Dutch straight fours entered in this regatta.
only 4 about them.
Yeah, 4 straight fours. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's 2 of the team, and then 2 development crews, one out of Neros and one of the development group. I mean, in the end, like, what makes you better? Racing makes you better. Racing is fun. So if there's a time to let the young guys out and race, I mean, that's what I would have loved. Like 5 years ago, I was here for the first time with Guillaume in a quad, and looking back, like Leonard asked today about it, and it's like he's like, so was it really that bad? I said, well, back then we didn't think it was that bad, but now looking back to it, yes, it was that bad, you know. I think for the last 200 meters we rode on top of the buoys, and we just about beat the U23 crew. With like Koen was in a boat in the end. I mean, he won the gold in the quad, and Guillaume and I went in the pair, and one guy he got injured at some point, but those in the end, that's where you learn the most. As fun as racing back home is, so it's all for the guys being here and learning.
I'm going to talk to you a bit later on about your time in the quad, but just sticking with the Dutch team, is the intention to produce a full men's team this year with a men's 8, a men's 4, men's pair, and the sculling boats?
I don't think I'm the one deciding that or the one to ask on that. I would say probably all depends on what we manage to show in the water. I mean, if we as the guys produce enough, 6 boats that are fast enough, then they're crazy not sending us, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't think it's a goal in itself to put 6 boats in the water if they're not fast enough. I mean, there's no need to you're going to a world championship if the level isn't there. But I think if the level is there, then I don't see a reason why not. But in the end, it's not up to me.
Yeah, there's been a lot of changes in terms of coaching and changes in personnel in Dutch rowing. How is that new system bedding in? And maybe you could just describe some of the changes for us.
Well, to be honest, to me, it's a bit tricky for me because I've only been back for 5 weeks. So on a lot of things, I don't feel like the authority to comment on some of the bigger changes because I won a training camp and now I'm here. And I think generally for the men's team, the change is probably not as big because the Elko and like in the end, who was a men's coach, ended up being the head coach for everybody. And I think that the philosophy we've been working in the last couple of years more or less was transferred or extended to the rest of the team. So I think for the on the women's side, that probably would be a more interesting question to ask. But and in a couple of months, I probably can. Obviously, the dynamic is different because men and women now are together. We went for a training camp for the first time together, which we never did. I mean, we used to go to the regattas together, yes, of course, but they're very separate entities with our own training camp timings, but also different locations because the women's team, they never went on the altitude camp. That was the first time they joined us on the altitude camp.
Oh, wow.
And they had different routines, and so now it's all one, and that's actually it's fun. It's a big group, and it's new energy, new people, a different atmosphere. But I like it. It's good.
Is Michelle Darville coaching the women?
Yeah, she is.
Wow,
yeah.
That's a new departure, isn't it?
Yeah, it's cool actually because so she's half German, right? And I'm born and raised in Germany, and so we can speak German as well a bit. And she actually knows my stepmom from back in Germany, who used to row in Germany. So
Oh
I like the
wow,
addition. I'm
wow,
not. We're three half Germans now, so no,
yeah.
four half Germans actually. Sorry,
So
because Finn and Caroline are half German as well. So
are they? Oh, their mum's German.
yeah,
Oh, I didn't
so
know that.
yeah.
That's really interesting. I didn't know you were half German as well.
Born and raised till I was 13.
So
My dad is German. My mom is Dutch.
you never thought of rowing for Germany.
I didn't row till I was 15 or 16, I think. I know, but I didn't. I liked it in the Netherlands, and there was no reason for me. I competed at the German Langstrecke one time,
Yeah,
just for fun, because I have a German club, and my dad lives in Berlin, and I'm still there often. And then I got beat by Jason Osborne and some guy called Ollie Zeidler, whereas back then I was like, who is that dude? Like I never heard of him. Why did I lose to him? Which within a couple months I got the explanation why I lost to him. So because I think that was the end of 2017.
yeah, yeah,
So, but no, I'm happy where I am.
yeah. You had an interesting story with how you began rowing. I saw on the Road 2K you did a 5 sort of question thing, and it
What
was
did I say
kind.
there?
I think it was something about your parents or your mum saying you must join
True.
a sports club
Well, yeah.
or else.
So I lived in Germany till I was 13, and we lived in Berlin, and we had a farm halfway Berlin and Hamburg, so an hour and a half drive. And on every Friday night we would drive up there, and then on Sunday we would drive back, and all the vacations we were there as well. So for me, it always was like, why would I join a sports team if then I'm gone in the weekends? I never get to compete. I never really got to the point in that. So okay,
Yeah,
so then what? I train something and then I'm not going to compete in it. What? I didn't see that. So I didn't do anything till I was 13. I moved to the Netherlands, and then at some point I wasn't on the farm anymore 2 days a week,
yeah.
which I was when I was younger, and I got my exercise there running, catching sheep and driving tractors and all kinds of things. And then it was, yeah, if you want social media or an email, it was email address or MSN, because that was a thing back then.
Yeah.
Then I had to join a sports club, and I tried a couple things. I went to like football, handball, and like all sports where I would say I was decently efficient, but mainly because I was running more and than the other people, more than because I was good at hitting a ball by foot or hand. And then, but nothing really stuck. And at some point, my German stepmom, the new wife of my dad, she said, "Why don't you try rowing?" Because she used to row. She was a world champion in the quad in '98 in the
Wow.
German quad.
What was her name?
And Christiane Will.
Yeah, I remember that name.
And well, she brought the erg into the life of my dad. So my dad bought an erg, and he was erging, and then I was erging alongside him sometimes. She said, "Oh, well, those splits don't look bad." And
Yeah.
okay, I'll go have a look at the rowing club. And then I showed up there for just introduction of the day, and then I liked the people. Uh, my probably met my best friend there, Martin Klopp, who you know as well.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
were just talking about him just before. So we started. He was rowing a couple months before before I showed up there, and we also were in the same class in school. And then I just loved it. I mean, those years I still think they were some of the most fun years of my rowing career. A year later, maybe a year and a half, Laila Yusufu, who's now in the Dutch double,
Yeah.
she joined as well. Like I still remember her first stroke. I was holding her single. I was like, "I'll let you go." And she was like,
Oh,
"No,
wow.
don't let me go. It's scary. It's scary." Yeah, and that's how just because of fun, I like being out, and then ended up in rowing.
So that was the Pampas Club, was it?
Yes,
Wow.
my still in the heart,
And,
still a proud member.
and how long did it take before you realised that you had a talent in the sport or that you were good at it? And when did you start thinking that you might want to make more of this and take it on?
I think I was 15 or 16 when I was in a boat for the first time. And then the first year was just 2 days a week, just for fun, maybe three. And actually, I remember there was a junior race over 500 meters, and I was racing in a single and in a double with Martin, and like I often won those. But there also was a 500-meter erg competition there where you could win a very big cookie, like a cookie doll. So I was like, okay, cookie doll, huh? It was a bit chunkier back then. When I sat on the erg, and I was the first one that day, and I think I pulled a 126.1, and it didn't tell me anything because I'd never done it. But then for the rest of the day, nobody attempted to go faster, which I thought was weird. It's like, you want the cookie as well. Why don't you give it a go and see if it's faster? But everybody's okay, that's too fast. I'll never be able to do that. I think that was the first day that I realized that the talent was there. And then a couple of weeks later, we did a 2K. And Martin and I both had this goal to break 8 minutes. And I just went off. And it kept saying 145, and people were coming up like, careful, don't go too fast because you'll die. And it's like, oh, I'll just see you end up. I ended up pulling 701.
Wow.
Yeah, that was those were the days when you would improve from one erg test to the next one by like 30 seconds.
Yeah, those were the days.
Those were the days.
So how did you get? Did you get a scholarship to Cal? Presumably.
Yeah. At first, not full, but then at some point, it was difficult to cover it, and then the team helped me. I was like a friend out of my junior quad. He got approached by Northeastern, and he went there. But I had another year in high school, and our junior national team coach back then said, well, if you want to go to America, if you want to do this, I only have one advice, and that look further what's out there. Don't just take the first best offer just because they come to you and they offer you something, because there are a lot of different universities out there. And then I was on the fence for a long time. I did the SAT at some point. It's like, do I want to do this? Don't I want to do this? And at some point, it's like, okay, I'm just going to fill in like all these questionnaires and just going to see what happened. And the next day, Cal had replied, and I think 10 days later, I was there on official. Within 10 days, I actually had to like get a expedited new passport because to make it in time. And I love the people, and I loved it there. And then there were a couple other options, and but the vibe was just, I liked it.
Yeah. So I guess one of the people you came across was Mike Tatey in Cal, because he was still coaching.
He was there. Then. That during my recruitment trip, those were 1.5 very memorable hours next to him in a lounge, and they definitely had an impact on the decision.
Really,
he's a special guy.
So tell us, what is it that makes Mike such a special guy and such a special coach?
It's first of all, he often gets portrayed as a hard, harsh coach, but the essential part is the feeling that I always had, that in the end of the day, if there was anything, he was there. When I was struggling the scholarship in a difficult situation in multiple dimensions, but he was there. Whenever he was there in the end, he cared. He often said like, the bottom guys, I'm going to cut them. And then he never was actually able to do it, to bring it across his heart, because, there was something, I think that was the basis. Because of that basis and that trust that was there, I think allowed him to push us. That's how I experienced it, right?
Yeah,
I cannot speak for everybody, and different people have different experience, but that's why he was always able to push me to be better and move boundaries. And obviously the group of guys was also, if you look at the 8 in 2016, which we won the IOAs with, I think till the last chance we gathered, like eight out of 9 guys were still in the running for the Olympics. In the end, I think 6 made it.
So who were some of the guys in that 2016?
The coxswain was Julian Vanonsky, was coxswain American Aid. stroke seed Nathan Vigrenci Chimchek.
Yeah.
In the single, I obviously should have made it, but last chance is a cruel regatta.
Yeah. Yeah.
7th seed was Martin Makovic, who I raced in the end
The
in the
Serb.
pair.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Serb, and who's here this weekend as well.
He
again.
is, isn't
So
he? Yeah,
he
more
is.
racing.
He is.
Yeah.
That's the battle within the battle, huh? The private competition. Then on 6 was Martin Herkmans, who was in the Dutch 8.
Yeah.
5 seed was Joachim Sutton, who in the end won bronze in the
pair.
In the pair. I was in 4. 3 seed was Ferdinand Querfeld, who was with the Austrian 4. They were in contention. They were in a route for the Olympic ticket till I think COVID hit that entire boat quite hard a couple of weeks before last chance. 2 seed was Morgan Helen, who was competing on the British team in 17 and 18. And then bow seed Alex Wallace, who was in contention for the American straight 4 till the end. So it was a pretty decent boat.
That's amazing. Did you win in that? Did you win the Head of the Charles in that boat, or was that the next year?
No, that was the year after. I was, or maybe even no, that was the year after. I think. Yeah, I was too old then. I was still there, but just studying.
Yeah. So you came over. I know. I want to talk to you a bit about Henley. You came over to Henley in 2015. That year.
You actually remember that? Most people only remember 2016.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about 2016, but I think you were in because Mike sends 4s over to Henley, and maybe with Scott Franston because Mike doesn't like.
It was 2015 actually was with Pat Shulkus. He coached that. Yeah, because I mean it's always tricky, right? In 2016, after we won our race, we also dreamed a bit of doing the Grand, but then Nathan, he had some event in Rio he had to attend in a single.
Yeah.
So Henley was difficult for him because he had to prep for Rio, and that it's always a bit like, okay, people have plans for the summer. You don't actually know. Henley is something you more or less have to deserve, right? You're not going to go to Henley if you're awful all year in America. And that's why, in the end, I think we ended up being in a 4 2 years in a row.
Yeah. What was it like winning at Henley in the visitors?
Oh, it was pretty special.
Yeah.
I mean, I only knew Henley from, obviously, from YouTube and the stories and everything. But that entire campaign was already a mess because we had Jovan Jovanovic in the boat who was a Serb at Kel, who on the way to the airport, so the week before Henley, we went to the Hollandbeck in Rotterdam.
Yeah.
And I'm actually an ambassador for the Hollandbeck this year, and I really want to invite everybody who's watching.
It is a great regatta.
It is a great regatta, and for us, it was the perfect prep regatta for Henley. And I think I really think it's sometimes underestimated in that value because you get in like a high level race just to be weak for Henley, and we had never raced together. But we were on our way to the airport to Amsterdam, and then Jovan came to the conclusion that for the UK, he actually needed a visa. And he didn't have one because the rest of the EU was fine. But the British, of course, they have their own rules.
Yeah.
So he then rebooked his flight to New York to go to the embassy or the consulate to actually get a visa. Anyways. And then we flew to Amsterdam, and we didn't know when he was showing up.
No.
So every day we were waiting, is he coming? We were rowing with somebody else. And then at Hollandbeck on Saturday, we raced with a freshman. And on Saturday night, he showed up. And on Sunday morning, we trained before the race in the straight 4. And it was awful. We're like, what? We've been waiting a week for this guy. And it's absolutely awful. And then we had an hour and a half. I think it was in the break between races till our final, which was against the Dutch lightweight 4 at the time.
Yeah.
And maybe the Canadian 4 as well. And Pat, our coach, sat down with Jovan, and for 40 minutes, they just talked and talked and talked. And we got in the boat. It was a completely different boat.
Oh,
in the end, we lost to the Dutch lightweights by half a second.
Yeah.
Something like that. And that, I still think that race at the Hollandbeck, that was where the foundation was for Henley, because that was, in that moment, the realization we needed and the the kick in the nuts we needed. And
Yeah,
for
yeah,
our
yeah.
Bausi, that was his first international race. He was a freshman from America, never raced. We nicknamed him, for all of Henley, we nicknamed him 42 because at the Hollenbeck he was looking out of the boat 42 strokes, because he was just like, at some point, like 4 strokes, because he was just like, had no idea what's going on. And I think that was really, it was good to get that in. And then we went to Henley, obviously knowing, yes, we're good. And then it was also Henley. It's special. It was Jovan's last race, and I remember that in the final we, I think we were a bit behind or level, and at some point, okay, Jovan, this one is for you. And then we took that length, and that was it. It was a good one.
Wow. And then you came back the next year, and I think it was a tough competition. You know, you had to battle to get to the final, and there was this incredible series of events in the final. Maybe you can describe that regatta from your perspective in the boat.
Well, for me, the most first of all, I was racing with a herniated back, which was
crazy.
Yeah, it was, in hindsight, probably not the smartest thing to do. Back then, I was like, okay, my back hurts a bit. How bad can it be? You know, take a couple ibuprofen, a couple Paris. There we go. Somebody will at Hollenbeck. Well, come say hi. I'll be there. But I was like, okay, this is going to be my last race for Cal, and I'm going to go on a high. But I was struggling walking. But rowing was okay as long as the boat was balanced, which usually Henley isn't. But hey, and then in the semi-final, I think we already had to restart. We trained before that we went to Henley. We trained at Oxford a bit, and in training I was stroking the fore at some point, but steering, and it turned out I was god awful at steering. So in the end, I didn't steer.
I think Morgan steered, didn't he?
In 2015, Morgan steered, but in 2016, Joachim steered. So there was a completely different crew in 2016. And we made it through the rounds, not rowing great. I think my back definitely wasn't part in that. And then in the semi-final, actually, already we were behind. And then I was like, boys, this is not going to be my last race as Golden Bear. Give me one more day, one more day. And I just kept shouting one more day. And that's where we actually moved in that race.
Wow.
And made it into the final, which was special. But there was not a doubt in my mind we would win this. And they were also like, we're gonna give this to you. It's your last race. And the final was similar, tough race. And at some point we took a length again on the push. You know, Mike always said the big push in the final has to be dedicated to something. It can't just be a push. You have to dedicate that one. And that was just easy because there was this. I was like, boys, please do it for me. And it was just the trust also in those. I mean, they were young guys that just, they had the strength and the talent. They didn't need me. That's more or less how it felt. And then I think with what was it, 100 meters to go?
Yeah.
Something like that. The Empire, Sir Vincent, he flagged us over. To be honest, I still don't know quite why. I think it was quite fair where we were. Though somebody said in the end that this launch was a bit over, but in the end it doesn't matter. But he flagged us over. We overcorrected. Then our bow seats actually saw what happening, but instead of in the moment just skipping a stroke, he was like, booms. He held booms. So then everybody looked at the booms, which just made the chance of hitting the booms even bigger, and it was too late. Hit the booms. Luckily, there was a photographer in exactly that spot where he hit the booms. So it got at least a legendary picture with it. And then, they passed us. Temps passed us. We lost by a length, I think, in the end. We still floated across the finish line. And that was that. So everybody always remembers 2016 that we crashed, but there are very few people that realized that the year before that actually won the same race.
Yeah.
But
so then you went from rowing, you switched to sculling. So you were sculling in 2017 and 2018. Why did you make that switch?
Well, I used to scull as a junior, and I always liked sculling. In the Netherlands, you row your single, especially in my club. We had like 6 juniors racing who were actually racing, like 3 girls, 3 guys, different ages all together. So everybody was just racing the single. So I was always doing that. Till I think February of 2017, I wasn't actually able to row because of a herniated disc
Of course.
back. So I was out for a while riding my bike. And the Dutch team didn't really have sculling in the Olympiad before. And Ilko was setting up a new group. He invited young guys, and he had invited me as well. And for me, I was quite happy because I didn't want to sweep at that point, also because of my back. So I was really happy to be asked and to join that group, and that way was a really natural transition because everybody who was able to scull of the new guys went into that sculling group really with the mission. Okay, we are going to prove that we have enough talent. We're good enough to actually have a Dutch sculling team, which now knowing what happened 5 years
Yeah.
later, you would say like, okay, that worked out. I mean, I wasn't in any of those boats, but
I thought
but
you were in a quad that got a silver medal somewhere in
yeah,
Poznan, was it?
that exactly Poznan 17, and that was I think it was a quite important moment just to, let's say, call it a proof of concept for the sculling in the Netherlands in the quad. We won silver. We broke the Dutch record, and I think that was the first time since a quad that won silver in 2000. I mean,
Yeah.
they were racing till 2003, but that was the first real time. I don't want to offend anybody who was there in the meantime. I don't know all the results, but that showed that like, hey, we have the guys without compromising the age. I mean, there are plenty of other years where the Dutch team could have made a great quad, right? But the priorities were differently. And then we won silver, and then with 2 of the guys who were racing the first World Cup, Freek and Abe, they're racing the first World
Yeah.
Cup in the nearest 8. I mean, I think it really shows in the Netherlands how fluid it all is between the sculling and the sweep rowing. And then in the end, the coaches made for the World Championships, they made a different decision for who was going to be in the quad. So I raced that year in Sarasota, I raced in the double. And Amos got my spot in the end, which was obviously painful back then.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way still is, but that's always part of sports. In the end, coaches have the task to put in who they think is the best guy for the job. And you don't have to agree with that, but it's something you got to deal with.
And then you had a double with Amos, didn't you? Was that in 2018 as well as 2019, or just 2019?
2018. No, 2018, 2019, 2 years. So I think we started second World Cup 2018 was the first race because 4 years ago in Belgrade I was racing with Michiel Ooyen in the double, and then after that with Amos, all the way up to Linz.
Wow, and that was a pretty decent double. I mean, you qualified for the Olympics, and the opposition you finished 7th, won the B final. There was some great crews in that B final. You had a fantastic race with the Kiwis.
Yeah, that was close in the end. I think that was 100th in the end.
Was it? You beat
was
the French as well, who went on to win the Olympics, Boucheron and Androdias.
Yeah. I mean, the double is a crazy field, and it's always been crazy to watch, and it's also been crazy to race. It's been fun to race. No, I think we were right in the mix. I think what we maybe lacked were the moments where there were a lot of, like, the French guys. We beat them pretty regularly, but we lost to them regularly as well. So then they would win the Europeans and the Worlds, and then all of a sudden they would lose again. But we were steady, but the last bit to actually contend for the medals, I think that was still missing. The trust was always there that it could develop. And Linz was a bit weird because the Dutch rules are actually different than the visa rules. So technically only the first 6 qualified for the Netherlands internally for the National Olympic Committee. So it was quite weird because we crossed the finish, and then the 4 of the 5 crews behind us were cheering because they got the Olympic ticket. And for us, it was, I mean, there was always a sense like in the end it would be fine because their internal processes to determine if that is enough for 7th place or not.
Yeah.
But technically we had not qualified at that moment. So there was a bit of a it was a bit of mixed feelings there, because in the end we did not come to, the goal wasn't to be seventh or to just get a ticket. Like, there never was a doubt we would get that ticket
Yeah.
on the first 11. I mean, in hindsight, if you see how close it was between in some of the races, you could say, okay, maybe it should have been a doubt, but there wasn't. So it was more disappointment in the end, I would say.
Yeah. And when
Was
did you realise that there was going to be another Dutch double that would take your place?
those are two different questions.
Okay, go on then.
Well, I would say, when did I realize there was another Dutch double? It was probably beginning of 2019. We were racing for the quad, that in the end won the Olympics, and those were some close races. I mean, there were seed races where we were 0.3 behind the lineup, which in the end was the lineup
Wow.
with the other four guys.
Really?
And I'm not claiming that they were as fast back then as they were in the end, but
Yeah.
still, there were some tight races, and Melvin Trella was just
Yeah.
new with the group, and Steph was always a long time alone in the single, and they would jump in sometimes, just because they're both in the single, and you mix and try, and they were already in, I think, a first training camp in February 2019. First time they were already showing that there was speed. I mean, we're still beating them, but it was clear there was something there. But then we still got to race Europeans, but actually a couple of weeks before Europeans, Amos cut in his finger. He was building something. Amos had the tendency to build things and injure himself doing so. And then we couldn't row for a couple of weeks. And then when he was back, we went to Pier de Luco, and they beat us badly. We got so at that point, it was clear that if we wouldn't step up our game, that they already would in 2019 race the Europeans. And then we did some internal races, which we at the time won. And then I got to race Europeans, and later as well. It was close, and at the same time, Steph was fast in the single.
Yeah.
So there was no real need to change something at that point. But I mean, all of season 2019, it was clear that there was another fast double. We knew that.
And that double went in 2020. They raced at the Europeans that year, didn't they?
Yeah, so there was a selection in the end of 2019, the starting of the Olympic season, which was, for me personally, also a difficult time. Like, I would say mentally, I was struggling because, let's say, I was the balance between being an athlete, the athlete Niki, and the human Niki, and finding a balance between what I thought I had to do as an athlete and was good for me as a human being. I'd lost that balance a bit.
Could you say a bit more about that?
I think within the Dutch team at some point there were some changes. We started training differently, and it started being a lot more structured, which was definitely a good thing. But I think I made that structure in my head a lot more, even more stringent than it was. Obviously, there were parts of how we trained which were important to follow, and there was a training schedule important to follow. And as a group, there was a group dynamic to do that well. But I think I went even further in my head, and limited the space which I thought I have to play and to be, and what I thought how I had to be an athlete, more than was good for me. And I lost the joy. I lost what makes me in the end who I am, and what makes me good as an athlete, because as well, a happy athlete is a fast athlete.
Yeah.
And I remember in the end in 2019, in that period that we're about to race, at some point I was just 2-hour session on the river, and I was just thinking on a loop, okay, I'm broken, I need to be fixed. I'm broken, I need to be fixed. And that was obviously not the time to do that, because we were racing to qualify for Olympic boat. So in the end, and I'm absolutely not saying, let's make that clear, that the outcome would have been a different one. because I think those guys, they deserved everything they got to race
Yeah.
that double, and they showed they were fast, and there's no comment there. But in the end, I was not able at the time to race for that spot, which hurt. At the time, I felt like I deserved the opportunity, even if
Yeah.
I was not in the best state. But the coaches made a decision there, felt like they had to protect me. Didn't race for that boat. Again, I'm not saying the outcome would have been different. A different one would have liked to fight for it and then
Yeah.
just lose. Just be behind. But that was a very tough period. A period where I didn't know if I wanted to continue rowing at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did you get out of it?
I think in a way, I mean, at that point, the Olympic dream was more or less done. Because there was a spot in the single, but that was also the spare for the bigger boats. So it wasn't just about who was the fastest in the single. So that was difficult. And for me, it was going back to, okay, why am I rowing? And it's easy to always answer that question with, I'm rowing to win. I want a medal. That's always the obvious answer. But let's speak for myself. It's not an answer. It's not an honest answer. Obviously, I want to win.
Yeah.
I like winning. I like medals. I hate losing. Obviously, that's a big part of it. And obviously, I'm competitive. Like I said, as a kid, I didn't want to do a sport if I couldn't compete. But at the same time, I don't think you can do what we do only fueled by that promise in the future of a potential medal. A medal of if Tokyo proved one thing once again, there a lot of things can happen. And some crews, they're so good, they can absorb those things. Like our quad, they had to grab day one because they were just that good.
Yeah.
But in the end, I think it's quite dangerous to build your entire the value system and spend make what you do for 4, in this case 5 years of your life dependent on the outcome in the end. And I think I'd done that too much. So I went back to, okay, why am I rowing? I enjoy the process, being out, the people. And I was like, okay, so do I want to keep doing it? I came to the conclusion, yes. And I've always been curious what I could do in a single. And then there was the option to be a spare within the team. And I was like, okay, I'm willing to do that. But then I really want to race a World Cup in Europeans and Henley. That were more or less my conditions. And the coaches already said, like, hey, out of themselves, we think it would be cool if you would race the World Cup, the Europeans and Henley. It's like, great. Okay, then no Olympics. But then I'm going to do something I believe in. To me, at that point, it was really important that I wouldn't try sort of a Hail Mary try to make it to the Olympics, because there were some people already at that point like, hey, you want to row pair with me? We can see, because the Dutch pair was still not qualified. You want to row pair with me and we can see if we qualify. It's like, I don't want to do something I don't believe in. And then in the end, I only have glass shatters, then I've tried everything. I'd rather do something in a single than without the chance of the Olympics I'm proud of. As to finish it off and to heal my relationship with the sport I love, than that I'm just trying to do something because I feel like, oh, it has to be about the Olympics. And that was pretty much the situation till February that year. So this all happened in November, the selection, and I was just running my single, and then we went on a training camp to Portugal, and then the straight forward their selection, and there were 4 guys left over after the straight forward was selected, and then those 4 guys were supposed to make 2 pairs and race each other to decide who got to race the pair to qualify. And then one starboard quit. He said, I don't want to do this. And then all of a sudden there was a port, so Guillaume was left over, and then we were like, hey, why don't we row a pair? And that was something I believed in. So that was all of a sudden there was the new path to the Olympics, and a new dream.
You had to go through the qualification regatta. I mean, how does that regatta compare to any other experience you've had in
First
marine?
of all, we had to go through internal qualification
Okay,
already, which
yeah.
was tight because we we had the best out of three, and in the first one we lost by 0.3, and the second one we won by 0.2, just to show how close it was
Wow,
within
that's
the team as well.
sensational. Yeah.
That was
I
first,
remember
but
you putting those out on Instagram, didn't you? Those results.
some a couple like clips of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But I don't think the qualification we got compares to anything. And like everybody said it beforehand, like it's the most awful regatta out there. And I was like, yeah, sure, I get it. But in the end, I summarized it like you only have sad people, relief people, no happy people, which is, I think, close to it. Like there's something we really felt like we were aware of what it was. Okay, it's a step we have to clear on the way to the Olympics. We have to make it important enough to qualify. At the same time, we have to make sure that we don't make it our Olympics, and then you qualify, and after that, the balloon is just emptying out.
Yeah.
So we're really conscious of that balance, and we knew the tension would be high, and we felt like, okay, we're confident, we're relaxed going in, and then we would go out on the water, and it was just all week, it was just awful. There was some of our worst rowing we've produced.
Really?
Our worst rowing we've produced in the 2 years we were together. Like there was just tension. There was just in the semi-final, Guillaume full started by I think a second. He went, then I went, then we stopped because we thought it was going to flag off, but it didn't because of the weather. Everything was compromised, so there was no time.
Yeah.
So then we were like in the buoys, hitting buoys for the first 100 meters. And this just said everything about like the tension in the body. And it was fascinating. It was just fascinating. And we actually, because it was a year ago last week, and we shared some pictures in the group with our coach and our manager. Yeah. And it's like, the year ago today. And it's like, oh, on all the happy pictures, you don't see the tension. And somebody, the coach, oh, what tension? And you sent some of the pictures from how we looked before those races back then. It's absurd. Like afterwards, I was happy. I got back to the tent and I just started crying. Like I was like,
wow.
Just said my mama voice, Mama, I made it. I was just, it's a cruel regatta.
Wow,
it's a cruel regatta.
How did you? Was the final? Did you have the same tension in the final, or did you have a better row? Because you beat the Danish pair in that race, didn't you?
Yeah, but it was still it was nothing near to how we rode on other occasions.
Yeah.
So we all the way in the, we rode past them in the end, and there was a confident, okay, if we row well, it's going to be relatively easy. If not, it's going to be a fight to the line, and it was, because in the end the British and the Americans, they were not that far behind either. But I guess that's the battle within that regatta. It's not just about who rows best and is fittest, it's also who manages the nerves the best.
Yeah. And talk to me about your Olympic experience in the pair. You won the B final. I guess there was disappointment that you weren't there fighting for a medal in the A final. But I mean, I'm just checking that out. How was your experience?
Well, I think it was stressful, obviously, because COVID and already the travels there. We were delayed because there was in close contact around the team. In the end, on a Friday night, we heard, okay, you're not flying to Tokyo tomorrow morning because we're supposed to fly on Saturday morning. So I was already stressed just going there. In the end, our luck, because that flight, all the positive cases in the Dutch team originated in that one flight from a person.
Oh, really?
So the flight we were supposed to be on, but we weren't on. So in the end, it was our luck. And then I think the first couple of days in Tokyo, we managed to enjoy that we're there, that we were Olympians, to what the Olympic Village is. I think it's a blessing in a way. If you're just two guys, it's I think easier sometimes to relax a bit and to come in a flow. And so I'm really happy and really proud that we managed to do that within very stressful environment where every day the Dutch team had a new positive case, but we still lived that part of the Olympics, I think, as good as possible in Tokyo under those conditions. Walking around at night, watching the Jamaican sprinters sprint and just be like awed by their power and like just these things you imagine of going to the Olympics. Then rode the first round, which was fine. And then the day after the heats, at some point, I was looking over and Guillaume was just taking a 2.5 hour nap, snoring. And I was like, what's going on? And it turned out that he had a skin infection. His elbow was like, gotta move this direction, that big. And he had to start taking antibiotics.
No, really?
Yeah. So that was the first, okay, not optimal. Then luckily the typhoon came, so the typhoon moved the entire time schedule for a day. So we're like, okay, that's nice. Yeah. We got an extra day of recovery. In the end, you never know what it does, but Guillaume, he thinks he was at 80%. He definitely was not at 80%, but it had an impact. And then going out in the semi, very windy conditions, something we always struggled with in training. So we were like, okay, just row as well as possible. And I think we probably rode better with those conditions than we ever had. And felt comfortable. Felt like we had something left, wanted to go for that second spot, and then just said 2 crabs. I mean, I think you summarized it as well, quite well, with 500 meters to go. Only a shipwreck could cost the Dutch the final, I think, were your legendary words. And then that's what happened. So I think one with like 250 to go, and then picked it up again, and the last stroke, another crab, and that was bitter. I mean, every crew you lose to at that level, they deserved it, and they were right there. I mean, the Canadians, there was a hell of a sprint.
Yeah,
but that was painful because it just felt like we weren't able to show what we felt we were capable of. I mean, I think if you look at it, of all the results beforehand, nobody's going to look at the history books and say like, hey, something weird happened there with that Dutch pair becoming 7th. But there was a real belief we had, the two of us, that we were able to compete for those medals. And I think like Joachim, I rode with him in America, and that was a battle I was looking forward. The 3-way battle was supposed to be with Martin as well, Makovic and the Serbian pair. That was what we're building up to for 2 years, let's say that way. And really, really felt like that would have been there, and we would have loved to show what we're capable of. And then again, if it's enough, great, and if not, then that's fine, but just didn't feel like we were able to show what we're able of and capable of, and that hurt. Yeah. I mean, we pretty quickly said we're not going to let that determine our path, our journey the 2 years before. It was, for both of us, it was a special and intense one. I mean, probably the most joy I had in professional rowing was in that period. The two of us and how we approached it. And then the B final just felt like something we owed it to ourselves to win that one. Yeah. Like it was just that was the minimum. It was not what we wanted, what we dreamed of. It was painful. It still is. I think I watched it back for the first, only the second time, like 2 weeks ago, doing a clinic, or like 4 weeks ago doing a clinic I was giving. But yeah, that's what I meant earlier. You cannot control it all. You can do whatever you want to be the best version of yourself. Yeah. But in the end, everybody does that. That's why I always struggle a bit, especially around the Olympics as well, with the word of, you would have deserved a medal. You would have deserved to do better. Mm-hmm. I think the word "deserved" in professional athletics is there are very few people you're racing who don't deserve it. Yeah. There is, by definition, only one person can win if we get a medal. So not everybody can win. And it's always, I feel like it's a very fine balance in professional sports between it's about winning. Obviously it's about winning. No, I'm not just there to participate. And at the same time, it cannot be all about winning. There is a balance there. And it was during the Olympics, there was a guy, standing outside the village with a sign, "Dear Olympians, don't forget you're all winners." And I posted that on Instagram with a text with basically the same message, and I think it reached almost 100,000 people.
Wow.
And got shared really often because it's a message that I find it, and like, I mean, you mentioned the Instagram in the beginning. To me, it's important to somewhere what we do as professional athletes in rowing. You know, we're not entertainment like football. We're doing an honest sport, made possible by the governments and the societies funding it. And there's somewhere certain values or a story you want to give back. And I think that to me, it's important to keep that balance in what the story I'm telling people between, yes, it's about winning, but the winning in the end does not determine the journey.
Yeah.
You go towards winning, but the other way around, it's not always the same. And if I look at like the amount of messages I got around the Olympics, like entire like chapters of books of people of what that meant and what they recognized in that story, that was a pretty special part of the Olympics in the end, which probably was more special because us not achieving what we wanted, but it was still something I cherish.
Wow. How long did it take you to decide to row again internationally after the Olympics?
A while. I'd always promised myself that I wouldn't just continue if then I would start rowing again, just from a mindset, because I think it's something you got to do with commitment and with joy in it. And it took me. It started in December. At some point, I came across a little video, and I was like, "Oh, let's post it on Instagram." And I was like, "Okay, I've been watching my own video like 10 times today," and the day after. And the day after, it's like, okay, I'm definitely the person who watched the video the most myself now. And then end of January, the rest went on the training camp, and I was doing an internship, finishing my master thesis, which I got the final version hand in this week.
Oh, congratulations.
Well, finally. And then, and they all went to Portugal, and I saw like their videos of rowing. It's like, why am I sitting here behind the laptop and they're there and I'm not there? And I was like, okay, it's back. So it took a while. So those were like solid 5 months, and I did some stuff in between. I ran a half marathon, got into doing that, but yeah, I wasn't done with my boat yet.
That's good to know. And tell me about this thing that you did with the whiskey company, where you cycled from Amsterdam and then you rowed across the sea.
Yeah, they approached me because they sponsor the rowing race across the Atlantic every year, and they wanted to set something.
Is that Talisker?
It's Talisker.
Yeah.
And they wanted to set up an extreme event to raise awareness for the race. So it's by Talisker, but the goal was to raise awareness for Parley. So Parley of the Oceans, very active NGO, which creates content to make people aware of what's going on with the oceans. So it's in the end, the focus was on Parley. Yes, it was paid for by Talisker, but the focus was on Parley. And they asked me to come up with something. So I was like, okay, what would be cool to do? There got to be some extreme element in it. So then you quickly get to, okay, rowing on the sea.
Yeah.
But then there always is the balance with the training schedule. So it also couldn't be too, like, I couldn't just go out and row the entire Dutch coast or something, because because we were actually at selection trial. We had pair trials 3 days after.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, I got to strike a balance. On the day it says 4 hours of training, so I got to find a good balance between doing something which is an actual challenge. I didn't just want to do something for the show, but at the same time. So then the goal was to go from Amsterdam to Texel, an island just above the Netherlands, within 4 hours. So it was 100K on the bike, then switch over to my coastal boat, and then actually cross the Waddenzee, which is about what was 10-15 kilometers, I think.
Yeah.
And they would make it like a send a production crew and film the entire thing, which was absolute chaos because they were not prepared. I was going a lot faster on my bike than they'd actually tuned their scooter to keep up, but then it was still going faster than they prepared. They were not ready for the water on the sea actually being wet to
Yeah,
their
yeah.
camera. So they were like, "Oh, my camera is wet." It's like, what did you expect? But it was pretty cool. It was a very cool adventure, and I think the message in the end it was, uh, and to me that was important. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it. It was not about the whiskey. I mean, obviously, it's a marketing stunt for a
Yeah,
whiskey company, but the message was around the water and what that means. And me on my little boat being there on the actual sea, which is
yeah.
crazy because you at some point you have like there was this massive headwind and I was just slamming into the waves and I was going like 155 because apparently there was a current in that direction.
Whoa.
Just at like rate 22. It's like okay, I feel like I should be going 3 minutes and I'm just going, and
Yeah,
then you
yeah.
just realize the power of the
Of the
the
ocean.
elements and the
Yeah,
ocean because you just that those coastal boats. I mean, they're a lot shorter because you navigate, but it also means that if you hit one current, you're just like, whoop, and you're gone and you just turn around. It's
wow.
it was cool.
That's fantastic. Nikki, we've been talking for nearly an hour. I just wanted to kind of round this up and ask you what you're looking forward to in terms of Belgrade. I guess, your own race and that. Are there any other races or crews that you're looking forward to see?
I mean, I think the most exciting part is that you don't really know. It's the first race post Olympics. You obviously you look at the entries and it's like okay, in the pair we have two crews out of Olympic final. Then we have the three fastest British pairs. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
That's usually not something that lines up in a pair. Usually there's an eight, and
No,
then
that's right.
you read everything they did at Caversham, and you're like, well, okay, how does that compare? I mean, I know some of the guys, especially Tom George and Ollie.
Ollie
We raced,
McGriffith.
yeah, we raced each other back in the States, so that's cool. So that's on my own. And then for some of the other fields, like you just I our looking at our quad, I have no idea what to expect. It's a completely new combination. I'm excited to see what they'll do, and that's with a lot of other boats as well. You know that some new crews will stand up, and you don't really know who they'll be. So it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's a fantastic answer as well. One thing I forgot to ask you, I know you do your tests on the Row Perfect. What's your PB on your 2K score?
So on a concept, which is I did my PB in 2014, feeling like an
Yeah.
old man. It's 553,
Wow.
and on the road perfect, it's 546, I think.
Wow.
Yes, 46.1.
That's
Oh,
pretty cool.
47.1, 46. Yeah.
And you did
So
yeah, go on.
no, I was just gonna say the road perfect just is a bit quicker
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
general.
And you posted your step test on Instagram, I saw.
Yeah. It's there got to be a balance between showing how beautiful rowing is and the drone shots from us
Yeah.
gliding across Austrian lakes, and the reality on the ground a bit at times.
Wow.
And I think there's speaking images sometimes on the
Yeah.
air.
So tell me about your racing this season. You're in Belgrade. Will you be doing World Cup 2 or World Cup 3? Will you be going to Henley perhaps?
Some of these things don't finalize. We don't definitely going to be in the second World Cup. Um, Obviously, Europeans this year
Yeah.
going to be a big one. Exciting. First time back in Munich after that was my first international race ever as a junior, the junior
Wow.
regatta in Munich.
Yeah.
So that's feels a bit like full circle. Wells, Henley, obviously would love to, but I also have I'm working part time at the moment. I have a company event as well that week in southern France, so it's
Okay.
all a
Yeah.
bit juggling. We'll see. And at the Hollandbecker, obviously, I'll be
Obviously the
there.
Hollenbeck.
I don't know yet if I actually be able to race. Same issue again, but yeah,
That's a busy season.
I mean, it should be. The thing is, like, we all started rowing at some point because we loved rowing and racing, and then you get the more serious you get, the less you get to race, basically.
Yeah.
Extra race. I mean, obviously 2020 was a COVID season, but I did the math, and I think per minute of racing there were about 850 minutes of training,
Wow.
and that's an awful ratio
Yeah.
for. That was not something I was inspiring. Obviously, it was not the worst that people have experienced in a year of pandemic. But I think the post-Olympic year, that's the year to play and to try things, and that's also the spirit we're here with, I think.
Wow. Niki, you've been an absolutely brilliant guest, and some of the things we've talked about have been absolutely fascinated by. Thank you for sharing so
Thank you.
much on this broadcast. We'll end the live part of the broadcast now, but just to say, you've been amazing, Niki. I hope you get what you want out of this regatta in Belgrade, and you have a fantastic weekend.
Thank you. You too.